Right, we're going to have a go at carving a shoe. So here's a fancy wooden puppet shoe, and we're going to have a go at carving the other one to go with it. So here's my block, and this is the one I'm going to cut out. This is the outline I'm going to cut out of the block. I'm only going to cut this profile, I'm not going to cut the other one, so you can just follow along. If you've got a hand fret saw, coping saw, you can cut this shape out, and then we can do some carving. I'm going to cut it on my scroll saw, but obviously you can use whatever tools you have to hand. Once we've got the outline shape, we'll then start carving it and see if we can get it to look more or less like this one. So I've cut out the shape here on the scroll saw. Now maybe you can see here I haven't gone really tight to the outline, I've left sort of a millimetre outside of it. This is because I'm going to carve away all over, and so this represents like the highest point or the largest point of your part. So if you cut tight to the line, you haven't got much to take off. So ideally we want to go just slightly, say a millimetre or so outside the line. That just gives you something to work to, and you can do that final finish cut with your knife. Because obviously coming off the saws, particularly the bandsaw, not so much the scroll saw does a finer job, but when it comes off the bandsaw you'll notice obviously you get saw marks. This is about as wide a piece or as deep a piece as I can cut on the scroll saw. Anything sort of thicker than this I would need to use the bandsaw, but the scroll saw can manage that sort of size. I've also drilled a hole in the top here, in the top of where the leg is going to go in. I did that now rather than after carving, so that's the point where I'm going to either glue my leg in or create a pivot if I want the ankle to be able to move. But use a drill, but you can carve that out as well if you want. So there we go, let's get stuck in. So first of all, we can see we've got to copy our other shoe here. So let me just make sure I'm in focus. Looks like we are reasonably. So as we can see, we want to, obviously shoes tend to be paired, and they're not always sort of symmetrical. They can be, but they're not always. So we're going to make sure we've got a left and a right shoe. But most of what we need to work on is just taking this to a point at the front, or more pointed. It's not a true point, but taking it so it tapers to the front of the shoe there. I'm going to take a little bit off the sides, like so. Going to keep these quite wide at the top here, but we're going to obviously take some off the back here to taper the back. I'll remove my bit of paper. So that's sort of from the top. From the front here, what we're going to do is this is our widest point, and then it's going to taper back in here down to here. It's going to be wide again, although not the fully widest point. It's going to be wide again there, and it's going to get tapered back to the heel back here, and we need to round over the back of the heel. So let's let's work on this. So we'll do the easy bits first, which is cutting the taper on there. So now you can use carving tools or knives, whichever you've got to hand. I'm just going to use my knife here, just to be slightly quicker and easier to see on the camera. So let's just taper this back. The other side. going to get it roughly there. I'm not going to worry about getting it exact for the moment, just get to the rough shape that I want. I'm going to cut in here, taper this back to the sort of top of the tongue of the shoe here. Put that back in. Same on the other side. Cut back in there. As you can see here, might be able to see here, we've got some discoloration on the wood. That happens. You can see I sort of carve it away, it's on the outside there. Now we are probably going to end up with a little bit on there, but as this is a shoe it doesn't really matter, so because it's going to be painted or stained up anyway. So, but it is something you have to bear in mind. I never sort of mind it really, I quite like it because it shows that it's natural wood. You get the odd sort of either discoloration or perhaps a tiny little knot mark or something like that. It doesn't bother me, but some people don't like it. But you can see how it's darker brown there than it is there. We've got a little bit of discoloration, some marks there as well. But like I say, I actually quite like those. It only gets really distracting if you get it on if you're doing a face and you get a sort of a line down there, can distract a bit, but otherwise I don't think it's a problem. So we're tapering across here. Same this side. It's sort of saying about, so you're going to have to cut, we want to cut all the parts, so here's still where it comes from the saw, we want to be able to take a small slice off there as well, so that's why you leave that just that extra little bit so that we can take that slice off and get rid of any saw marks that might be there. Going to taper back across here. This angle. Like so. So we take off that chamfer off there. Make sure we're getting nice and straight. Now we've got to taper down towards the heel on both of these sides. What I'm going to do is put a little cut in here to mark where the heel stops as well, and then I'll just for a little bit of extra detail, but it also gives me a defining point, so I can make a little, almost like a little chamfer in there coming back to the heel. I can then just taper this across to that and down. to just round off the back here. As I say, I'm just using the knife here, but feel free to use any of your tools that you prefer. So once you've sort of go from one side, turn it round, come from the other side, make sure that you're sort of getting it nice and even. And then you can always compare with our other one as well. So I need to taper down more. Yeah. The heel. On this side. Okay. Again, we can always offer up, if we've got a reference one and one we've already finished, we can always offer that up as something to compare to. If it's the first one, it doesn't matter so much. You can be a bit more freestyle and then make the second one match your first one. See there, we need a little bit more of both sides, a bit more of this side, a tiny bit more of that side. I'm going to taper in from there, just take that off. Okay, so we're starting to get there. Clean up here a little bit more. Okay, and we've got a couple of final things to do. We're going to cut out a slot in here. So I'm going to basically separate the two sort of sides of the shoe, sort of tongues of the shoe here, and make a you might find it easier with a V-tool or something to get in here, or just cutting straight down with a carving tool rather than a knife, but we'll just use this one for the moment. Might have to get in there. With something else in a minute. Going to slice a bit off the top here. And make sure we've got the same shape on both sides. Clean up that, make sure it's tapering down in. Okay, so we're nearly there. Obviously I haven't done the actual sort of fine work, but just to show you sort of the roughing out part, which you can then tidy up from there. Got to make these a little bit thinner, I think, match up with the other one. Just take a bit off there, and a bit off here. Right, okay, one last little bit of detail we're going to put in, and that is here. You can see I put some sort of creases in here where the shoe bends up. So very simply we're going to mark a point on here. We're going to make like a triangle. So it's going to be the top of the triangle is going to be in here, and it will come outwards like so. That makes a back at it. So it makes a sort of crease. Let's see if we can see that. Get that in the camera there. So we'll do, so you can see there, little crease. And we'll do one at that angle and one at sort of this angle coming like so. Making the top of my triangle here. So we've got one, you can see a little crease there. I'm going to do another one here. So we've got one on this angle, we're going to do one on this angle here. So we've got our top of our crease here, or top of our triangle to make the crease up here, and then we taper it out. It comes out like so. Like so. So we get a little double crease in there. Like that. We'll do the same on the other side. So we'll get. You might find it easier if you put the actual piece down on the workbench. I'm going to have to hold it up so if I can show the camera, but you might find it better and safer if you put this actually down and work down rather than in your hand. But for the sake of the camera, I'm going to hold it. So I'll put it there. Like so, mix one. Do the other one, the other angle there. So there we go, it's in there. It's little things like that that help to make the detail of the puppet just gives that extra little bit of interest and just makes it look like a little bit more effort's been put into it, just to put those sort of fine little details in rather than just a basic shape. But if you just want to do the basic, that's fine. So just need to do some tidying up, but that is pretty much it. A pair of fancy shoes.